Our two readings this morning come from the Revelation of Jesus Christ and from the Gospel of Thomas. Remember, I am coming soon. I bring with me the reward that will be given to all people according to their conduct. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Happy are they who wash their robes so as to have free access to the tree of life and enter the city through its gates. Outside are the dogs, the sorcerers, debaucherers, murderers, idolaters, and the deceitful. It is I, Jesus, who has sent my angel to give you this testimony about the churches. I am the root and offspring of David, the morning star shining bright. The Spirit and the betrothed say, "Come." Let the one who hears it answer, "Come." Let the thirsty come forward. Let all who desire it accept the gift of the life-giving water. I warn everyone who hears the prophetic words of this book, if anyone adds anything to them, God will add to that person the plagues described in this book. If anyone excludes anything from this book of prophecy, God will exclude that person from the tree of life and from the holy city which are described here. The one who gives this testimony says, "Yes, I am coming soon. Amen. Come, Jesus." The disciples said to Jesus, "Tell us how our end will be." Jesus said, "Have you discovered then the beginning, that you look for the end? For where the beginning is, there will the end be. Blessed are they who will take their place in the beginning. They will know the end and will not experience death." Ancient words for our present day understanding.
Revelation has to be the strangest book in the Bible. It's very strange stuff. I don't imagine you missed that. Blessed are those who wash their robes, that they may have the right to the tree of life and may go through the gates of the city. Outside of the dogs who practice blah, blah, blah. I am the root, the offspring of David, the bright morning star. I warn everyone who hears these words of prophecy of this scroll, if anyone adds to them, God will add the plagues, this kind of thing. Okay, it's strange, I will admit. Thomas Jefferson had a Bible that he used, and he took out certain books that he hated. And his two least favorites were James and Revelation. I think he took, I actually have a quote from him, which is very inspiring. He talks of Revelation. He says, "I consider it merely the ravings of a maniac. No more worthy or capable of an explanation than the incoherence of our own nightly dreams." Then he says, "What has no meaning admits no explanation." The cynic H.L. Mencken thought all scriptures like that. And he says that you know that something is nonsense when you have to threaten Sunday school teachers with hell if they're going to teach it. If I were to be able to teach two things about the book of Revelation, the first is very trivial. It's an idiosyncrasy of mine. And that's that it's in the singular. It's revelation, not revelations. That may not be possible to be taught in Texas. When I was in San Antonio, I was called Rigsby because they had a street Rigsby. And sometimes the S's just slip in and there's nothing you can do about it. So that's not a big one. The other is to realize that Revelation is not a book of predicting the future. At least that's not the original intent of it. That it was written at a time of great turmoil, political oppression, and what John is trying to do is do poetry that will help people survive through this time of transition. Apocalyptic prophecy is a particular type of prophecy. In prophecy, you're not trying to be right. You're trying to get people to change. You're saying, this is what's going to happen if you don't change course. But there comes a time when you realize you've already passed a line. Like when you have hurricanes all the time and they're getting bigger and bigger. Apocalyptic literature would say you're not going to get out of hell quickly, but you will get out of hell. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to happen the way you want it to. It doesn't mean a nation is going to survive. It doesn't mean a planet is going to survive. It's putting us in touch with the hope that we don't lose, even in the worst of times. I will get to that in a second. That may not sound very helpful, but when your nation is dying, as that nation was when this was written, when there are empires that are sweeping the land, people need to know there's something bigger and more powerful than these bullies. And that's what John is trying to do with poetry. If you'd been just kind of out of the womb, heard the biblical stories of the Jewish scripture, when you read or heard Revelation, you would realize he's talking in a coded language that the Romans can't understand, but we can. The beasts are the empires. What the great invincible empires of the world. And they're saying there's something more basic than that. There's something more durable than that. So it's taking the personal situation people are in and giving a cosmic backdrop, sort of a cosmic soundtrack to what's happening, so that people have a hope that's not based on shallow victories. It's not about predicting. That's why I think when Thomas is asked by his disciples in the Gospel of Thomas, how's the ending going to be? Tell us the predictions. What's the little thing? Because I mean, how many times have you heard like the mark of the beast and it was somebody different? I'm old enough to, there's been, countless, and 666 was always whoever somebody didn't like. Well, 666 was the emperor. What that's saying is, we can't throw off the yoke of misery right now, but we are part of a longer story than that. When we hear Thomas's thing, that it's not about just the ending. If you don't know the beginning, you don't know what the ending means. Then you realize that in Revelation it says, I am the Alpha and the Omega. It's not just talking about fortune telling, the future. It's discovering the pulse of life. It's discovering whatever that cadence is that gives life, that sustains life and receives life. That deep, deep poetry of the cosmos. I probably first started understanding this. I was in San Antonio, my first calling out of seminary. And I love the city of San Antonio. I hate the traffic of San Antonio. And I hate the layout of the traffic of San Antonio. If you ever lived there, they say, well, it's based on the donkey trails of, which it turns out donkeys are not that great at city planning. And when they decide they want to do road work, and this is my paranoid memories of it, but they tear up a quarter of the city so that you can get lost for a long, long time. And I'm particularly good at getting lost. So there was one evening I'd been visiting, tried to come home, and I'm going through the detours. And I'm very un-Gandhi-like. Is that a good way of putting it? So getting lost, going through the detours, and there's this train that comes, and this train goes on forever. Forever. Thousands of cars. Thousands of cars. And I'm not happy, and not calm, not at peace, not doing what I'm going to recommend you to do today. Finally, it goes by. I'm kind of pouty and doing this kind of stuff. I go through another detour. I have to go through another neighborhood, which seems like it takes 30 minutes. Finally, pull back, and there's more tracks. The bar comes down. It's the same train. It's the only time in my life I spoke in tongues. I gave utterances that nobody, at least my mother, would not understand. Put it like that. So I'm sitting there fuming and this stuff. At the very end of the train, the engine is driving the whole thing. Now, this may be rationalization to try to make up for lost hour. But I thought that's sort of what this apocryphal material is about. It's saying the driving force of history is not obvious to you yet, but it will be. It's what's been there all along. It's in things like nature. It's in things like human nature. Those are things that are beyond fate. Even if we throw off the balance of nature, it will still be nature. It will have its own balance. We're the ones that will suffer. So we go back and we see in Revelation it's saying, I am the Alpha and the Omega. There are activists who live from that deep place. I believe Jesus was a person who lived from that deep place. And when he spoke, he would sometimes say, I am. And he was really talking about the cosmos, this deep pulse. And he wasn't asking you to take his word for something. His intention was for you to find that same depth within yourself. You go back and you see some of the best friends humankind has ever had. They're people who seem unbeatable because they don't quit with the results of fate. They're coming from a deeper place. If they can't do it in their lifetime, they plant the seeds for somebody coming down the road. A person like that was Peace Pilgrim, who was a woman who saw war and she didn't know what to do about it, like so many of us. And instead of just passively resigning to it all, she decided to do what little things she could do. She walked all over the United States talking about peace and calling people to peace. This is the way she understood her life. And see if this doesn't sound like sort of the Revelation passage. She says, who am I? It matters not that you know who I am. It is of little importance. This clay garment is one of a penniless pilgrim journeying in the name of peace. It is what you cannot see that is so very important. I am one who is propelled by the power of faith. I bathe in the energy of eternal wisdom. I am sustained by the unending energy of the universe. This is who I really am. What an amazing statement. And now that's said in religious language. But when you look at some scientists, they talk the same way. This is Neil deGrasse Tyson. We are all connected. We are all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically. Let me read that again. Because I think he's saying the same thing from the outside in that John is saying from the inside out. We are all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically. What that's saying is there's a depth within every one of us that is beyond fate. It's beyond what happens to us. That we don't have to let victory or defeat define us. We can sing this deep cosmic song that we bring into the world no matter what happens. And sometimes the song is the most important when the times are hopeless. How many of you have heroes or sheroes who kept singing at a time of midnight when there was no hope? Those faithful human beings who can't change the particular time that they're living in, the situation that they're living in for themselves. But they come from a deeper place. And they give us a gift of simply being a light in the window that keeps us from losing hope. Peace Pilgrim again. I'm going to quote her a lot, so I'll just, whatever check I get this week, I'll send to her family. The thing I love about really hardcore activists is they're usually, a lot of times they're religious, but they're also anti-religion too. They're spiritual but not religious kind of thing. She says, please do not say lightly that this depth that she's talking about, that these are just religious concepts and not practical. These are laws governing human conduct, which may apply as rigidly to the law of gravity. When we disregard these laws in any walk of life, chaos results. Through obedience to these laws, this world of ours will enter a period of peace and richness of life beyond our fondest dreams. The word apocalypse simply means to take the lid off of something to see what's inside it. So in a book like Revelation or Daniel, what it's doing is not just predicting the future, it's trying to say what the principle of human nature are, what the principles of nature are. Anybody can look at what has happened to our country and know a whole lot about the future. And that part isn't necessarily good for a while. But you know, we're talking about things we've never talked about. White supremacy, toxic masculinity, this gender dualism that has never really explained anything. And there are no guarantees or promises about what the other side of the river will look like. But there's a sense in which it doesn't matter if we want to be faithful, if we want to give humankind the best chance to find its bearing and its ways. And again, it's not just religious talk. This is Nikola Tesla. What's his name? Tesla. Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Now, the ancients didn't have physics. You know, they didn't have a periodic chart. They didn't have words like this. But it seems to me they were talking about a lot of very similar experiences. Again, they were talking about them from the inside out. What a gift we have to put those two together. To have great scientists and great mystics. And to help us make the connection like that from both ends. Genesis was never about astronomy. They said the world was created in 7 days, not because they had the game plan, but because when they stopped every seventh day, it aligned them to the moon and to the lunar calendar. What a difference it makes in life if we tune ourselves to nature and not to artificial measures. If we rest when we're tired, when we eat when we're hungry. If we set our pulse on the pulse that's all around us. That's, I think, what the great friends of humankind have been trying to say to us. But it's very strange language, and I don't blame anybody for not wanting to hear it, until we realize that's what we're looking for right now. Because we've got the outside-in stuff down pretty good. But in our time, we know ourselves objectively, but not subjectively. And in so many ways, the ancients were better at that than we are. Here's Peace Pilgrim again. Stop being an escapist. Stop being a surface liver who stays right in the froth of the surface. There are millions of these people, and they never find anything really worthwhile. Be willing to face life squarely and get down beneath the surface of life where the verities and the realities are to be found, where the truths are to be found. And the truth is, your life is basically a pulse. It's a pulse. It's not a steady road. It's a whole lot more like trying to ride a horse than to ride a car. And when we try to live without that pulse, we begin to feel like machines. We begin to live like machines. And true spirituality calls us back to the rhythm, to the pulse. And it uses poetry and it uses songs to help us find our way back. And you see scientists talking about this. You see artists. This is Stravinsky, who says, "There's music wherever there is rhythm, as there is life wherever there is beats a pulse. There's music wherever there's rhythm, as there is life wherever there beats a pulse." What John is trying to say to the people is what's happening to them is important. What's happening to us personally is important, but it's not our foundation. The success or failure of your job, of your relationships, those are important. They're very important to us personally. Our health, our intentions, our plans, that's all very important to us personally. But our worth is not on the line. We come from a deeper place. We express a deeper truth. We sing a deeper song. There's a part of us that lies beyond fate, beyond success, beyond failure. And the great prophets have called us to live in that place, to find that place. In philosophy, they call it first things. It's what are the foundations of life? What is it that makes you who you are? What is it that gives your life meaning? What makes something true? What makes it beautiful? What makes it good? Revelation is not a prediction of the future. It's a call to the first things. Genesis was not a description of the beginning. It was a call to first things. And you're not being asked to believe somebody else's version of it. They're doing the best they can do to help you feel that truth within yourself, to feel that pulse within yourself, and to realize the pulse within you can align to the pulse of life and of nature. I remember the actor Paul Newman used to say, "I check my pulse, and if I can find it, I know I've got a chance." This is the last word we give to Peace Pilgrim. To attain inner peace, you must actually give your life, not just your possessions. When you at last give your life, bringing into alignment your beliefs and the way you live them, then and only then can you begin to find inner peace. I invite you now to your own reflection on these words.